Hey everybody, today I'm diving into 10 tips uh, or suggestions, I guess, that I would do differently if I had to start my tenure track position over. So first you might be saying, what is tenure track position? Sarah's a teacher. Yes, I was a teacher in junior high for 15 years. And while I was teaching and working on my PhD, I was teaching some night classes at a local university or at a community college, and those were adjunct or instructor positions. So it was semester to semester and no promise of being there long term. It just depended on if classes were available for me to teach. So a tenure track position is the expectation that you will be around for a while, or that they're sort of investing in you to make sure and you have support for your teaching and support for your research so that you can be a part of the university for a long period of time, rather than worrying about whether or not you have a job semester to semester or year to year. So I started a tenure position, which I had to completely leave my junior high job and work full-time as a professor. And so that's what I mean when I say if I had to start my full-time professorship or tenure track position over again, which was 5 years ago, I'm starting my 6th year. What would I do differently? And so this might be helpful for you if you are thinking about changing careers from K-12 to higher education. It might be helpful if you are in your early years as a tenure track position, or if you're an instructor, an adjunct, and you're trying to get a tenure track position, or you just want to learn more about these kinds of things. I'm going to take you through that. And so I have 10. 10. Okay, so let's dive in. So for this tenure track position, number one, I relocated. So this is something you have to decide if you and your family can relocate for a new job. So for me, my partner and I relocated from the Chicago area to Stillwater, Oklahoma. It was still Midwest, South Midwest, and we had to sell our home and everything, quit our jobs, and relocate here entirely. So what we did is we rented an apartment first. We signed a full year lease. In retrospect, I would have signed a 6-month lease. We came a little bit earlier before we moved here to look at 2 main cities that were nearby. Our campus is not in a big city, it's in a college town. We thought maybe we would want to live in Tulsa or Oklahoma City, and we looked at some of those places, and we opted for living in the college town because I didn't want to keep commuting, which I did a lot when I lived in Chicago. So for us, it was really important in our first year to rent this apartment on campus and see what it was like living in Stillwater and on campus and being a part of the community. So the reason I would say I think it's helpful to live on campus initially to get to know the lay of the land, and to get to know the new job and to feel like you're part of the university environment. And it makes it easier to attend events, to meet colleagues, and to integrate into the community. So I would advise doing that initially. And I did in fact do that. So maybe that's not what I would do differently. But I might understand it a little bit better. And the reason I use initially is because I don't think if I had to do it again, that's where I would stay permanently. We ended up buying a house here. So we've stayed here, and maybe I'll circle back to that. Oh yeah, that's the next one. Okay, number 2. Okay, number 2, relocating off a campus. So after that first year, I might have considered buying a house in the city, in Stillwater, or in Tulsa or Oklahoma City. Those are 60 plus miles away from campus. It seems like a lot. It is a lot. But one of the things that I realized after working here for a while, and position that is at a research university, I'm not teaching every day. The schedule is very different than it was when I was K-12. So I didn't have to necessarily be on campus for 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day like I was when I was teaching K-12. Sometimes I would teach online. Sometimes I had class in person. So typically 2 days a week, maybe I would be for a few hours. And then sometimes there were meetings on Friday. So some weeks I was here 3 times a week. Sometimes it was 1 if I had an online class. So this really varied. And it made me think, like, if I'm living on campus and I want to be involved in campus and yet I don't actually have to be on much, I had to think, my partner and I needed to think about maybe it would have been better for us to live in one of the cities. And for me, it would have been because Tulsa and City both have vibrant beach volleyball communities. Now, I never got involved with them here, or I tried, but it was in 60 plus miles each direction to play volleyball for an hour or two, and I couldn't keep it up. It didn't make sense for me. So I gave up something that I was very passionate about because it didn't really have a vibrant community in Stillwater, or I didn't find one. And it would have been better for me, I think, emotionally and for my well-being if I had chosen to live in one of the cities that had some of the activities and spaces that I needed for my well-being and for my lifestyle. So that was also I found out that I tend to work with schools in Oklahoma City or in Tulsa. So I'm driving to those cities anyway for my research and my service. So living in one of them might have been a better bet. So thinking about long-term, not just my initial position and routines, that would have been something I would have done differently instead of buying a house in town. So related to all these things is number three is having a flexible office space. So embracing the flexibility of not having to be in one school all the time for 8 to 10 hours or 12 hours or 14 hours a day when I was teaching junior high. So I would have to be on campus. I would have to be in the classroom, in the building all the time. Most of my work was there. I keep my computer at school. Sometimes I would take my computer home, but much of my work in K-12 was at school. Whereas in a tenure track position, much of my work involves research and writing. And I don't really have to do that in my office at school. I have a nice office at home where I have food, bathroom, a nice place to walk, some privacy as well. And so being at home is a little bit better. Now, on the other hand, being in the office is great. You'll have more of those in the margin kind of conversations in the hallway as you're walking to the bathroom or getting some more water, or a neighbor comes by and they knock on your door, and you'll have more of those impromptu conversations. That's really great for school culture. For me, my research and my writing is with people from all over the country and the world. So we're meeting online in Zoom a lot. So it makes sense for me to be able to do that at home and have my hours be really flexible. And I'm just really embracing that flexibility. And I tended to keep with a rigid routine and schedule. Just had this job, not really embracing the flexibility or really understanding what that might mean for me. So take advantage of the flexibility in your work environment and your schedule. So related to that, number four is setting up your home office. I have a dedicated home office space. This was important. We figured this out right before we moved here. We had an office space in our condo in Downers Grove, Illinois. And when we were looking to buy this house or rent the apartment first and then buy this house, we made sure we had an extra bedroom where I could have an office. And this was just really important to having a dedicated space that is away from our living room and our bedroom. And so I could like go into my office and leave my office. There's something just psychological about that a little bit, though I tend to carry my ideas with me in every room of the house. But having a comfortable, organized space, it's pretty organized right now, though like the books kind of start piling up on the floor, is really essential for productivity. On these other walls, I have whiteboards with keeping track of things that I'm doing. I have some Zoom lighting that you can see here. I have a nice window. I have a fan above. Sometimes it gets warm in here in the summer. And I have my big screen, and I have my laptop, all these different things, chapstick always nearby, and different glasses in case I need them for reading. So all those different things, just having it set up really comfortable. I have actually two different chairs. This is one chair you can see. I have another chair that's kind of a chair that you would use in a dental office because it's a little bit more ergonomic. So I trade out chairs when I need a little different feeling for my rear end and my back. So that's really important, setting up a home office space, trying to figure out, I'm spending a lot of hours sitting and writing, which is very different than my K-12 life where I would be on my feet all the time. So that's kind of important. And I guess I can also just admit that sometimes I use compression socks. If I'm sitting for a long period of time, it's really nice to be having compression socks to help with the circulation in my legs, but also maybe that's not really a replacement for when I should be getting up and walking. Okay, number 5, things that I would do differently if I were to start my tenure track job over. I made a whole video about this, about trying work-life balance. And what I found out, so number 5 is balancing work, personal and professional life. And what I found is that I can't really do that. They're like the same thing. I am just like, I am who I am. I am a teacher. They blend together. I like them. I like all of this, me as a whole. But it is easy for me to let my work consume me. And I find myself, getting up in the middle of the night to write something or to finish something, or I can't rest because I have a student on my mind and I feel like I need to craft an email or look for a new book or revise my lesson plans. Um, so there's something about being very passionate about your work, and then I guess there's something about being obsessive or maybe a workaholic. So those are some things that I would think about a little bit more if I were to start this over. So when I first started, my first year, I feel like I was finding a nice rhythm and it wasn't too difficult, but my nature is really just to amp it up and to kind of go full force at everything. And so I have to keep like pulling myself back, and then I kind of overwork myself again, and then I pull myself back and I overwork myself again. And so this is just a routine that I have to keep following with. Now, if we go back to my other idea about living, away from campus, but if I had chosen to live in Tulsa or Oklahoma City, I might have had a more vibrant volleyball community for myself by now, 5 years later. And that might not even be an issue. So I might really be like, I can't really play volleyball and be thinking about books and reading. So it was a really clear separation for me when I was playing volleyball. And that is something that I gave up. And if I had to go back and do things again, I think I would have tried to find a community where I could have kept my volleyball life going a little bit better. Yeah, so there's the work-life balance. Okay, number 6 is the support network, building a support network. Um, I started my job here. I started my tenure track position the year before COVID hit, and I really found a support network right away through Ethical ELA. And I hope you go over to that website and join us over there for our monthly open write. For the new books that we have been publishing together for teachers to make free resources for you around teaching poetry and writing. I found those connections during COVID and through my professional network of teachers who wanted to write and were interested in things similar to me. And I started connecting with faculty members who were interested in things I was, like ungrading practices and humanizing pedagogical practices, LGBTQ plus rights, and really anti-racist practices and research and work. I found a professional organization, the Oklahoma Council of Teachers of English, the Kansas Council of Teachers of English nearby. I started attending those conferences. So I feel like, I don't know that I would do things all that differently regarding building a support network. I felt like I did a really good job of that. And I got involved with Poetic Justice also. I got involved right away, and they were all really valuable sources, resources, support. They gave me great advice. They were great communities for collaboration. The thing is, none of those are really in person so much. So I still am kind of quite isolated in my office. Now, I don't know if this is something I would do differently. I am quite an introvert. I do like my solitude. I do like these collaborations through research and through organizations and conferences. That seems to work really well for me. So I would think when you're starting a new job or a tenure track position, you might want to think about the kind of networks that are important to you. The homecoming network and football campus type network of things wasn't really my speed, which is again why maybe I would not have lived on campus where I do now. Um, so I think it's important for you to figure out what kind of vibe you want as far as a professional support network and a personal support network for you. Okay, 7, thanks for staying with me. So one of the things I would do differently, and probably when applying for a job, is to understand what tenure track means and to understand what research one means. So I accepted this position as a research two university. I wasn't entirely clear what that meant, but I knew it wasn't a research one university, meaning that there'd be a lot of emphasis on publishing and doing research, more emphasis or a greater emphasis on that. So I didn't really understand what tenure meant or how to go about doing it. I figured I'm just going to figure it out. I work hard. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to know what I need to do. So I just like put my head down and did what seemed interesting and worked with people that were nice to me and interested in the same things I was. I got involved and it worked out for me. You know, I had my volunteer efforts to meet teachers. I worked with the teachers to do research. All of that helped me be a better teacher. My research, my teaching, my service were all interconnected. And I knew that that would serve me because I was following my passion. I was following my kind of ethical compass about what made me feel good and the people that made me feel like I belonged and help with that imposter syndrome. You can see my video about imposter syndrome. Oh my gosh. Um, so I didn't have a really intentional plan. And so maybe if in going back, I might have an intentional plan of like the republication, like 3 articles or 2 chapters or X number of things, because I overdid it. I really did. I overdid it. I was just a nonstop every opportunity. I said yes. Every idea I pursued. Um, I just did it because I was passionate and I didn't really know to say no, like this is enough and this is too much. I wasn't doing those things for tenure. I was doing those things because I was interested in them and they served my heart and my mind. But in looking back, as far as thinking about this as a job or a career, I might have had a better sense of my capacity and that it's not really typical to have 16 different projects going on at the same time or to say yes to, you know, a dozen dissertations when, you know, my capacity is really limited in those things. So understanding tenure requirements is something I would have like pursued that a little bit more. Okay, number eight. This is about students. Yes, our job is research and service, but it is also engaging with students and nurturing, really having relationships with students, undergraduate students and graduate students. And so I work with undergraduate, master's, doctoral students, also graduates of our program, graduates of past universities that I've worked with. So there's lots of students that I am making new relationships with when they enter our program here, and students relationships with who are later in the program or who have graduated, and some students who have graduated and then become my coworkers and my colleagues and co-researchers and all of that. So there's lots of relationships and engaging with students in lots of different ways in their lifespan and in your lifespan as a professor. So this is really important because it's working with students gives you valuable insight into your own teaching practices and research and your identity as a professor. So I really try to be approachable and trying to find out what is reasonable and not to offer too much time in my career. I was never a tech person. Yes, I had a blog and I did some, you know, Google Classroom and some Flipgrid and stuff like that when I was a junior high teacher. But I never thought I would be like a technology person or, you know, like a professor who was like great on social media. Oh, I'm not saying I'm great on social media, but like engaged in social media. But if I had to do it again, I would get involved in social media a little bit sooner. I would understand the platforms a little bit sooner, and not be, again, kind of haphazard. I'm just sort of drawing on tools when I need them. And I think I would have a little bit more of an intentional approach to my digital presence, for my research, for my teaching, for my collaboration. I did not know very much about Google Scholar or ResearchGate, all those kinds of things. I also have this experts directory at OSU. So keeping up with where to put my publications so people can follow me and find my work in all these different locations has been like really frustrating for me. Because if I have a publication, I have to go to like 4 or 5 different places and enter the publication. So maybe there's a better way to do that. I don't know. I like it on my CV. I like to just share it on my social media and help people find my work. But to do it over again, I think I'd like to understand how to leverage technology better. I think the graduates programs could maybe do a little bit better job because we get our work out to teachers better if we can understand social media better, because a lot of our research is behind paywalls or journal passwords or library passwords or things like that. So that's something I would understand a little bit better. Yeah, in fact, I might set up a whole section on my website for that, or for other people to just share the great work that they're doing. Okay, last one, number 10. Staying adaptable and positive. Adaptable and positive. I think I did a good job of staying positive and adapting, especially with COVID. Pivoting my work was really in young adult literature for most of my PhD and all of my service work with young adult literature and the YA Summit and Steve Bickmore's YA Wednesday, all of these different things. At the Allen workshop, I was really involved in all these young adult literature pieces. And then COVID hit and I found myself falling into poetry and being around poets and being around writers. It was just a different community of people who were thinking about and using writing in a way that I was, that made sense to me, that made me feel seen and supported and loved in many ways. And so I pivoted big time to doing a lot more with writing and having an identity as a professor around writing practices because I was adaptable and positive. I was a little resistant to this. I didn't see it coming. So if I had to do it again, I would have been more aware that you don't have to stay in one lane as a professor, that it's okay to expand your research and your lines of research and your interests. Like that's just like a human thing to do. I do know that there are some people who are experts and they stay in their path of research, but for me, I found that just being adaptable has served me better. Might have done that sooner. I might have embraced that sooner if I had it to do over again. So I bet you have, if you're in a tenure track position, and you've been there for a long time, or even if you're new, you probably have other suggestions of things that you might do over again. So I would love for you to like add that to the so we can be in conversation and keep the conversation going a little bit longer. And if you this video, I encourage you to watch my video about imposter syndrome, my video about when I tried the work-life balance, like that. You might like that video. It's kind of funny. And please subscribe to this channel and then do that bell thing so that you get a notice when I have new videos coming up. I try to have them every Friday, so you can follow me that way too. And I guess that's it. So thanks for watching. See ya.